Hi and welcome. I'm Steve Martirano, and this is the Behavioral Corner. You're invited to hang with us as we discuss the ways we live today, the choices we make, the things we do, and how they affect our health and well-being. So you're on the corner, the Behavioral Corner. Please hang around a while. Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome again to the Behavioral Corner. It's me, Steve Martirano. I'm the one with the job. You know, I stand on the corner, and if luck holds out, people walk by. It's an amazing corner, the Behavioral Corner, and they tell us stuff that we find interesting. We hope you do as well. It's called the Behavioral Corner, so it's a podcast about everything because everything affects our behavioral health, spiritual, mental, the whole thing. It's all made possible by the financial support of Retreat Behavioral Health, about which more you will hear a little later. So if you're finding us for the first time, good for you. Push the subscribe button. We appreciate that. I'm really excited about our guest today because he has popped back up on my radar after many years, and with a new book on a topic I've been wanting to talk about anyway. We're going to be talking, I'll warn you ahead of time, about the R word. That's right, retirement. Millions of us in the baby boom cohort are either actively involved in our retirement or we ought to be thinking about it and planning about it. And we probably are not doing that well. Our guest did. Steve Lopez is a columnist for the Los Angeles Times. He's a 4-time Pulitzer Prize winner finalist. He's a best-selling author, and he's been a columnist for a number of periodicals, Time Magazine, the San Jose Mercury News, Oakland Trib, and where we crossed paths when he was the ace columnist for my hometown newspaper, the Philadelphia Inquirer. Steve has won numerous national journalism awards, and he has written 3 novels. And he also wrote the best-selling nonfiction book, The Soloist, which was on the New York Times bestseller list forever, and also made into a terrific movie called The Soloist, which featured Jamie Foxx and playing Steve, Iron Man. I mean, of all of his achievements, which you can see are notable, for me, the crowning achievement is that the guy was portrayed in a movie by Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr. It's unbelievable. Steve's new book is called Retirement. What I've learned from about retirement from those that have done it and some who never will. We welcome Steve Lopez to the corner. Hi, Steve. Good to see you again.
Hey, it's good to see you. And think about Robert Downey Jr. The poor guy went from being Iron Man to newspaper man. What a come down that was, huh?
Well, he's a good actor. I mean, it takes something to convince people they would do something like that. I like that movie. I thought Fox was great, and the story is great. If you don't know, if you haven't seen, go stream The Soloist. It's a great movie based on Steve's terrific book. So. Retirement. Okay. We're in this baby boom thing where someone once described the baby boomers. If you can imagine life as a python snake that has just swallowed a gigantic pig, and the pig is moving through the python's digestive system. That bulge is what the baby boomers have always represented to American society, a gigantic group of people who changed everything they touched, demanded certain things, had dreams. Some came true, some didn't, but we were a force to be reckoned with. And now, well, it's extra innings. You know, we're getting into the overtime period here, and lots of us are going, retirement? Okay, what's that all about? Steve's a news hound, as you can tell from his resume. So he decided not to just jump into his impending retirement blindly. He went about looking for answers. That pretty much got it, right, Steve?
Yeah, you know what I'm thinking about now, being devoured by that snake, by that python.
We all pass through that snake.
we're moving through the digestive system, and we're about to be pooped out. That is the story of boomers. 70 million of us still living and breathing. And, you know, here's a number that shocked me. Maybe I was naive, but when I started the research and first heard this, I thought, oh my God, I better write a book about this. 10,000 people a day in the United States turn 65. So, think about that. 10,000 people every day
You
are
can hear
hitting that big number.
you actually hear it happening, the creaking of the knees and the grunt when you sit down. You know, my favorite. You talk, by the way, in the book. It's a great chapter on what happens when you're older and you're trying to watch television, and you're bombarded with these. Here's what you need to be taking to make sure you don't die. One of the great advertising campaigns ever is the one. I guess it's an insurance company. I never know, where the guy is trying to get younger people not to act like boomers. And my favorite one is when the guy sits down in his lounge chair at home and makes a noise like, "Oh!" I do that all the time. And he would like, "That's not necessary. Don't do that." But in every way, I mean, those numbers prove my point. I mean, in every way, we affect whatever benchmark or moment in our lives we collectively experience, and retirement's a big deal. So let me before we get to the kind of weeds of your book, it's just full of so many great stories. People, as you say, who are enjoying it, others who are not so much enjoying it. Just this one thing, I don't know whether because I looked around and I couldn't quite figure it out. This idea of retirement, which can seem like a expiration date. How is that a new phenomenon? And by new, I mean relatively new. I mean, did people in the 18th or 19th century have a kind of end mark that they looked at, or did they stop working because they could no longer work?
I didn't look that far back. That's a very good question. I did talk to a guy from AgeWave by the name of Ken Dichtwald. He's in the book. And he talked about how, Social Security grew up in part out of, okay, you've been on this job long enough, and we got some young people coming up behind you. Let's move it along. Let's get out of the way and have, somebody else take that job, somebody younger and fresher. And Social Security came about, and Social Security was a way to keep you in decent shape in retirement. But I don't know, going back that far, whether people but 65 became that magic number, right?
Yeah.
65 was the number where I worked at General Motors on the assembly line. And 35 years later, you got that gold watch and a send off, and you met at the corner tavern, and that was it. But retirement is so different today, and the changes have been accelerated by the pandemic, where now you can hold on a little bit. There's part-time and there's flex time and there's working from home, as you and I are doing here today. And I think there are new options. Retirement is changing. And the other thing that's happening is that with the pandemic, you had all these people who decided, hey, you know what? I hated my job and I ain't going back to it. And so with the worker shortage, you have some employers reaching back to those boomers, reaching into the belly of the snake and pulling out those old timers and saying, hey, guess what? Can you give me a couple hours a day? So retirement right now is really different than it was when I started working. Yeah, and the other thing that's so different, you don't stick with one employer. Most people these days move around a lot,
No, yeah. I mean, I kind of thought the same thing, that it probably that this notion of it as a end point, so to speak, or a distant point in the future that was codified, probably grew as a result of the Social Security Act for a lot of economic reasons. But it shows you the power of the government. They've taken something that probably didn't exist as a firm idea and codified it, and then it became a benchmark. Then it became, okay, that's the finish line for good or bad. But it's really not like that, as you said. And you went out to find out how it's being experienced in so many different ways. And you as usual, you talk to such great people. I was struck very much by the two gentlemen at the beginning of the book. The one is a Jesuit priest, and the other is a vintner who makes wine. And they both had kind of similar views, because you were asking the question, what should I do? Should I just hang it up because there's so many things going on I want to do, or I think I want to do? Tell us about Father. It was Father Boyle, right?
That's right. And the conflict, Steve, the conflict for me, and I found that it was a conflict for a lot of people as you approach retirement age. And I'm past, that traditional retirement age. I just turned 69. So what I was thinking was, okay, I've done this for 50 years. I really, really, really love what I do. I feel lucky and privileged to be able to parachute into people's lives, tell stories, keep learning things. It's like I've been in graduate school for 50 years, getting a master's in life in the behavioral corner. I work at the behavioral corner myself, and it's a lot of fun and it's very fulfilling. And I thought, I love this. However, I've got a heart issue. You already talked about the creaky joints. I've got 2 knee replacements. And my parents were on the same calendar, or I should say, I'm on their calendar, the same heart issues, the same joint issues at the same age, and they began to have cognitive loss. And I thought, if I'm on their calendar, I don't have that many years left where I remember my wife's name. And am I going to be one of those people who hang on to a job? I like it. That's, it's not like it's digging ditches, and it's not physical labor like Mel Brooks told me. Why not just keep doing it? But what if I'm one of those people who, when I finally pull the cord, I'm too hobbled to go anywhere or do anything. So that for conflict, not how do you know when it's time to retire financially, but spiritually, and who are you going to be when you do retire? So you're right. Among the people that I asked were peers, and Father Greg Boyle and Randall Graham, who started Bonnie Doon Wines and became known around the world as the Rhone Ranger because he blends these Rhone varietals. They're my age. They're almost exactly my age. And I thought, they're on my calendar. Let me see what they think. So I went to see Father Greg. Now, let me tell you quickly about Father Greg. A Jesuit priest for this week, 50 years. This is his jubilee, a 50-year celebration as we speak. They're having a big banquet for him this week in Los Angeles. So he, for decades, has run what's called Homeboy Industries, where he helps to redirect and resurrect the lives of young men and women who have been in trouble. They got into trouble, born into violence and trauma and all sorts of difficulties, and they're coming out of it. They're coming out of that, and they're trying to do something positive. And he's got job training, and he's just a compassionate old soul who really saves lives. I mean, it's unbelievable that he should be sainted now, like Sister Mary Scullion, and who's cut from the same cloth, a Philadelphia nun who was another hero of mine. Anyhow, so I went to Father Greg, and I was doing a story on him. He won some big award. And I said, Father Greg, you ever think about retirement? And he looked at me like that was a little crazy. And he said, well, look at the work that he gets to do and look at the work that I get to do. Why would either of us ever think of retiring? And he said to me, this is fulfilling, and life is about finding something that makes you feel relevant. You're giving back. You're tethered to a loving God, or reaching out in public service to those who need it. You cannot do better than that in life, and I will retire in the graveyard and not before.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, you know what? He's about social and economic justice, and that's been a lot. It's one way to describe the work that I've done for 50 years. And I thought, if he's still at it, how feeble am I that I'm thinking about, leaving class and going out to recess for the rest of my life. So then I was interviewing Randall Graham, the winemaker, at this vineyard. It's in kind of north central California. And on this vineyard, he's trying to create, with stocks from Europe, and he's trying to create a climate change resistant grape that is a new California grape that when you drink it says, this wine is from California. And he's very, he's got a romantic notion about wine and winemaking. And he's also exactly my age. And there I am interviewing him. And I'm thinking to myself, now this is something I care about. The planet is on fire. It might not be around when my grandchildren come up. And I can write about climate change in a way that people can relate to. And in California, there's 30% less fog along the coast. And that has an impact on the grapes. And it means that one day there may not be Cabernet Sauvignon from Napa Valley. And this guy is ahead of the curve, trying to create a new grape that's more heat resistant. And I'm talking to him, and he's bringing out the wines, and we're sampling them under a tree on his vineyard, just the two of us. And the fog is coming in off the coast, because this is one of those days when there is a little bit of fog. And I'm asking him, Randall, you're the same age as I am. You ever think about retirement? And he looks at me like, and he says, you know, are you really thinking about it? I said, yeah, I am. And he said, you are getting paid to sit with me under this tree, drinking wine right now. What the hell are you going to do in retirement that's better than this?
Yeah, you know, I'm sorry. He said something that hit me as hard as obviously it hit you. And Mel Brooks, you get to in the book to talk about your time with Mel Brooks, who's never going to quit either. And they both said the same thing, but in remarkably different ways. I mean, Graham says, "Are you nuts? Look what you're doing. You wouldn't. You'd rather be fishing? What are you, crazy?" And Mel Brooks, I'll never forget this line. He went, "No, that wasn't Mel Brooks. It was Norman Lear, who said, 'You got up this morning, came to do something that you're good at and interested in, and you're talking to Norman Lear.'" I love that. But he said you wouldn't be here under any other circumstances. Are you crazy? And Lear is what, 100?
Yeah, he just turned 100. When I interviewed him, I think he was 98. And you're right, he said just that. And he said, you know, he also said he was quite the philosopher. He said that life is about hanging in that balance between what's over and what's next. And he said, imagine yourself swinging in a hammock between yesterday and tomorrow. And if something pulls you out of that hammock, you wake up and you can't wait to get to something, then that's life. That's all. That's you already got the prize. That's all you want to think about, and that's all you want to shoot for. So why the hell are you thinking about what you're going to do next month, next year? If you wake up and you got an idea for a story and you still got a typewriter, a pen, a pencil, go and do it. Just live in that moment and enjoy what you're privileged enough to be able to do.
Yeah, the hammock was a great metaphor. And I thought of that as well. I think about it in my career. Someone described what I do, and you certainly, is that we were lucky enough to be drawn to a kind of secret doorway that if you're clever enough and lucky enough, you can open the doorway and pass on through to the other side of things. The other side of the police barricade, the other side of celebrities when they're not on, you know, that world most people experience vicariously. Journalists like yourself, columnists, and to a lesser extent, somebody like me, when I was in the music and sports business, I got to go into the locker rooms. I got to go backstage. I got to meet a lot of people, finding that doorway. So in terms of your book, which is about retirement, it raises the question of, well, let's be honest about this. There are some jobs that are harder to walk away from than others. And you talk to many people who echo those sentiments about staying there and keeping to do it. What about the people you spent a lot of time in some place called Leisure World, where you got a lot of older people living all together and you got a lot of different views. What was this? First of all, what is Leisure World? And what sense did you get from them? There must have been a lot of people there who went, thank God I don't have to go to work anymore.
Well, Leisure World is a giant retirement community just south of Los Angeles. And it's there's several thousand people living there. And what I did was I came up with this idea to write a column for their community newspaper saying that I was thinking of retiring and I wanted to go to school on their experiences. So anybody who had any advice or any stories to tell, please, email me, call me, whatever. And a bunch of them jumped up. I mean, look, we've got 50 million retirees in the United States right now. A lot of them have time to talk. And so I enjoyed, became pen pals. And it was good to reach out to such a big group because I got the full range, everything from isolation and depression among those for whom retirement was not working out, people who were so thrilled in retirement that they wish they had done it sooner. There was a little bit of everything. I remember calling one woman. I had trouble getting hold of her, and I thought, let me give it one more try. And she picks up the phone, and I heard all of this chatter, like two-way radio chatter. And I said, where are you? She said, my husband and I are on our boat off the coast of California. We're just cruising around, and it's almost cocktail hour. We're going to enjoy the sunset. We just ran into a bunch of fishermen who handed us a beautiful piece of fish, fresh catch. We're going to grill that and have our cocktails. And what the hell are you doing still working? She said, you know what? Don't wait. Do it when you're young and healthy enough to enjoy it, because too many people wait too long. So there was that. And then at the other end, people who, there's one guy who said, you know what, things come up that you don't anticipate, and you should anticipate them because it's just life. But your grandchildren need orthodonture. Your roof blows off in a hurricane, your garage floods, your wife gets sick, you suffer sorrow and loss. And you find out that retirement is a lot like life. Things keep coming at you that you gotta deal with. So don't idealize retirement as this, you're just gonna cruise all day. For that woman on the boat, who knows what, she might have been headed for an iceberg. I don't know. But yeah. It was the full range. It was a full range of experiences at Leisure World. And I really loved that those people shared their stories. One woman said, you know what? She said, don't do it. Do not do it. She said, I'm still working as a freelance writer, and I'm going to do it as long as I can, because when I look around, all I see is people who are kind of, bored. And how long can you play shuffleboard before that gets old? So I got the full range from the folks at Leisure World. It was really, it was great. And I'm one of those people, Steve, who the last person I talked to, that's what I believe. So I kept zigzagging. I kept thinking one day I'm going to retire. The next day I'll never retire. And it took me a while to get to my own decision.
Yeah, that's one of the great things. It makes the book even more fun as you bounce between pillar and post, going, well, wait a minute. Well, she's on a boat. That makes I love that. The book is called Independence Day: What I've Learned About Retirement from those who've done it, and some who say they never will. Steve Lopez is our guest. Again, it's made up of a series of visits Steve makes to different people just to pick their brains about this thing. And one portion I want you to talk a little bit about. If I were going to tell people what it was about, I would say, well, it's like the beginning of a joke. A therapist and a rabbi walk into a bar. Tell us about those two fellows that you went to see.
Yeah, I thought that, if you're going to write a book like this, you can't do it before you visit with a rabbi, a priest, and a bartender. I didn't get to the bartender, so that's my sequel. I'm going to do a book of, musings on retirement from a bartender who I'm sure has heard every story that there is. But the rabbi, her name is Naomi Levy, and she's an author who wrote a book called Einstein and the Rabbi, and she thought very much in that book about the soul issues as she described it. And she told me that what I was asking myself was what's in my soul. And she said to me, she said, Steve, you are in the city of LA, and the city of LA is in you. And, as long as you live in this place and see things and feel things, it may be that you're going to always need to write about them to feed your soul, because that's who you are. And she said, too many people underestimate the value of structure in their lives. And she told me about a congregant who came to her and said, I don't know what it is. I feel fine Monday through Friday. On the weekends, not so much. I feel lost. And she said, well, that's structure. That's you need structure on the weekends. You thrive on structure. I began thinking and talking to Rabbi Levy, who said, retirement is not for everybody, I began thinking more in terms of what's really in my soul and what would I do in retirement to feed my soul. And I wondered, in talking to, one reason I want to talk to Mel Brooks and Norman Lear is because they create things. And I thought, if you have creative energy, I got to wake up and think, what's the column, and then turn a blank page into something that makes sense, at least halfway. Is that creative energy oxygen? And without it, might I suffocate? And so I talked to the rabbi about that. And the rabbi had great advice. And one thing she said was, if you're sitting there idealizing like you're going to, I don't know, you're going to serve on a nonprofit board that's committed to a cause you care about, or you're going to learn to fly an airplane or whatever else, it might be wise to carve out a little time pre-retirement to make sure you like those things. You ought to consider sampling the dream. And I have done that. I'll tell you about that in a little bit. But the therapist said, as I described to him my situation, and I presented it as this big problem, this conflict, this unanswered question. What am I going to do? And he said, well, I don't really see a problem here at all. And I said, what do you mean? He said, you're lucky enough. You're one of the few people lucky enough to be in a job that you love to do, and you get a lot out of it. And you can write forever. So if it's not what you're doing right now on a regular daily schedule, maybe it's you cut back a bit, or you switch from daily journalism to writing books. But he said, you're asking the therapist how to solve a problem that's not a problem.
Yeah, it's kind of a wake up moment when the shrink says, you tell the shrink what's on your mind, and it's a problem, and they look at you and go, what are you, crazy? That's wrong, what it was. Right? What's wrong with you? What are you crazy?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and the rabbi's notion of the soul thing and structure is really, I know for me that makes a lot of sense, because I have led in terms of career-wise, a pretty unstructured thing. I wanted to get into broadcasting at a very early age, high school, and I did that. But in terms of plotting it didn't work out that way for me. It seemed like a good idea to go work in Boston, and it was, and I went to work in Boston, and it seemed like a good idea to live where you are now, out on the West Coast, and so I did that. But there was very little structure in that. And the other thing I remember when thinking about, retirement, boy, you don't have to do anything. Somebody once said to me, it's hard to do nothing. You never know when you're done.
That's that reminds me of another character in the book. Her name is Nancy Schlossberg, and Nancy was she's in her 90s. She lives in Florida. She was a professor most of her career in Maryland, I think, where she was a psychologist and actually specialized in big transition. Yet when she retired, she wasn't prepared for her transition into retirement, and she found that it wasn't what she had expected, and she hadn't thought it through. And surprise, given her background, but she lost her husband. She moved to the town they used to visit together on vacation, Sarasota. She didn't have a social network there because she was relatively new to town. And so here's this psychologist who's an expert on transitions who felt lost. And she began interviewing, fellow retirees, and then wrote a book about it, and then wrote another book about it. And now her career has been resurrected. She's now, she does seminars on what to think about pre-retirement. And, she told me something that she said, you need to embrace ambiguity. You can sit there and try to figure out exactly what your retirement is going to be. But like those people at Leisure World found out, retirement can be just like your work years, where things come at you that you don't expect, that maybe you don't want. You lose somebody, plans go by. But she also spoke about trying to figure out a way in retirement to matter, because she thinks retirees will find that they tap into this human instinct to need to matter. And it could be to your dog or your cat. It could be to the grandchild who needs orthodonture and they can't afford the bill. It could be to the mentoring that you're doing with young writers or colleges, but in retirement to matter, doing something you care about, much happier retiree than if you sit on the couch saying, hey, this is cruise time. I don't have a worry in the world.
Yeah, it can get old fast. Well, look, the literary conceit of this book, of course, is this fellow, Steve Lopez, is looking at potential retirement. So he's going out to try to figure out from other people what their experience can teach him. And so I don't know whether you want us to tell what decision you made. I think it'd be very obvious. You're not going anywhere. But what the book is about, it can be helpful. It certainly can show you, well, I shouldn't do that, or maybe I should do this. It's a great kind of how-to book, how to approach something that I think none of us, certainly I wasn't, thinking about in any timely fashion until it was staring me right in the face. And then it was like, oh my God, now what? So pick it up, Independence Day. It's first of all, it's filled with Steve Lopez, and it's just great stories. Tolliver's barber shop, which we can't even get into, and the people he runs into up and down his travels. All of which, by the way, I want to do this before we go, was a setup. Steve's journey of discovery was set against the backdrop of his youngest daughter, who was going to leave to college, and that's the empty nest thing, which is hard for everybody. Certainly hard for Steve, an old softy here, is his daughter Caroline, off to college. So it's valuable on many fronts. But I got to tell you just this one thing. When I put the book down at one point, I wonder how Caroline made out at the school she chose. And she's a tennis player. And I went to the school's website, and I opened up the athletic page, and there's your kid. Big as you can be, right on page 1 at her school playing tennis. And I went, that's nice. I got a kick out of that.
I love Steve that you did that. That is so sweet. I'm going to tell her. Tell her a stranger to me. I was proud of her. I thought, look at that. She just told the old man or the athletic director who put her on that page, see, I told you this was going to be okay. And it was. That's great. Yeah. Yeah. And Steve, that was part of my consideration was the double void. Do I want to retire at the same time that my daughter is going to be leaving the house, and can I manage that? I don't know, because I am a softie. But how about in the end, it's Mel Brooks, if he quits what he's doing, can be a life coach, because I ended up taking his advice on a hybrid plan. Keep working a little bit, but carve out a little leisure time and go do.
Yeah, well, you got to have enough time to be able to see your daughter play tennis and learn to fly that airplane. I think just froze up a little bit here. Steve Lopez, the book is called Independence Day, What I've Learned About Retirement from Those Who've Done It and Those Who Never Will. It's great reconnecting with you. I couldn't be happier that you were able to do this. Good luck with the book, and good luck with your semi-retirement.
Thanks for having me, and I look forward to seeing you again in person somewhere sometime.
Well, if you're on the road for the book and you're you're here, I know you've got a lot of time since you're calling us from your home in Southern California, and you freed up a lot of time because the Dodgers are playing golf and the Philadelphia Phillies are playing in the World Series. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
How about a column on a team that loses 111, wins 111 games, it gets blown out by the Padres? You guys should be ashamed of yourself.
I am ashamed. I have no excuses, but you're assuming I'm a Dodger fan. I'm still a Phillies.
Oh, hey, you're a Phillies fan, and you'd be a Giant fan too at some point because you're a Bay Area guy. Steve, thanks so much, and we need to stay in closer contact just in general because I love talking to
you. Hey, anytime. Thanks a lot for doing this. I really appreciate it. And you're good at this.
You got to say again, we're breaking up a little bit. Go ahead.
I said, thank you, and don't retire. You're good at this.
Oh, well, thanks. I appreciate that. No, I'm not going anywhere. My wife manages to put up with me, so it's good. So it's great.
All right.
Steve Lopez, thanks so much. And you, thanks as well. Don't forget, push the damn subscribe button, please. Just, I know you don't follow me and like me and all that stuff. I love it. But push the subscription button. The Behavioral Corner.
Retreat Behavioral Health has proudly been serving the community for over 10 years. Here at Retreat, we believe in the power of connection and quality care. We offer comprehensive, holistic, and compassionate treatment from industry-leading experts. Call 855-802-6600 or visit us at www.retreatbehavioralhealth.com to begin your journey today.
That's it for now. And make us a habit, hanging out at the Behavioral Corner. And when we're not hanging, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter on the Behavioral Corner.